Good afternoon in New York, good evening in Rwanda, Israel, and Europe, and welcome whatever time of day or night for all who are joining us from the rest of the world for this important webinar. I am Yael Danieli, founder and executive director of the International Center for the Study, Prevention, and Treatment of Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma, ICMGLT for short. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Held in collaboration with SEVOTA in observance of Kwibuka 29, the 29th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, when over the course of 100 days, from 6 April to 17th of July, 1994, an estimated 800,000 to 1 million Tutsi and a number of moderate Hutu were slaughtered. Between 250,000 and 500,000 women were raped. Of the women who took an HIV/AIDS test in the 5 years after the genocide, 70% were infected. Approximately 20,000 children were born of rape. Your moderator, that is me, I am a clinical psychologist, victimologist, traumatologist, and psychohistorian. I devoted much of my career to studying, treating, and preventing multi-generational impacts of massive trauma, to victims' rights, to reparative justice, and to articulating history as it is lived rather than only as it is written about. This webinar would not have happened without the dedication of ICMGLT board member, Dr. Mary Fabry, and the help of ICMGLT advisory council member, Dr. Didacienne Mukahabeshimana, who is also our first speaker today. Dr. Didacienne Mukahabeshimana is an associate professor at the University of Rwanda School of Nursing and Midwifery, Mental Health Nursing Department. Didacienne is a mental health nurse, educator, researcher, and clinician who has worked with victim survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, focusing primarily on rape survivors and their children for over 2 decades. Her advanced diploma in mental health nursing from Centre de Formation des Soins Infirmiers and Centre Mental et en Psychiatrie de Genève, Swiss, followed her bachelor, master, and PhD degrees in nursing at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Our second speaker, Dr. Glorious Uwizeye, is an assistant professor at Western University in the Arthur Labat Family School of Nursing. She is a mental health nurse who completed her postdoctoral fellowship at Dartmouth College, a PhD in nursing from the University of Illinois in Chicago, a Bachelor of Nursing Honors Mental Health, and a Master of Nursing Mental Health at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Her research program focuses on the intergenerational health impacts of genocide against the Tutsi and epigenetic mechanisms linking prenatal exposure to genocide or genocidal rape and adulthood health outcomes. third is Didacienne Mukahabeshimana. Didacienne is an activist for peace who believes in Mahatma Ghandi. And she let me quote her, "Change yourself to change the world." She has a bachelor degree in social science and specialized in conflict resolution and, and specialty in conflict resolution from Ottawa University. She contributed to different initiatives for peace in different countries in conflict, such as Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Central Africa, and Solomon Islands. She works as Advocacy Officer at SEVOTA, the organization that is collaborating with this webinar today, which has supported women and children of survivors of sexual and gender-based crime during the genocide of Tutsis in 1994 in Rwanda. As mentioned earlier, SEVOTA is ICMGLT's collaborating organization of this important webinar. Let me just add that Godelive, SEVOTA's founder, is being awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Texas for SEVOTA's work. And it's not her first important international award. I would like to mention before we get into our webinar today that this webinar follows two webinars we did on related Rwanda 1 and Rwanda 2 last year in collaboration with other wonderful organizations. And you can find the recorded webinars, I highly recommend, in our website. So we're actually creating a body of knowledge in these, in this initiative. We have an hour and a half for the webinar. Each speaker will talk for about 10 minutes. Following an interchange among us, I will open the floor to questions or brief comments from the virtual audience. Panelists will then conclude with last words. Please use the chat function and we'll do our best to respond to as many as we can. Feel free to direct your questions to a particular panelist or the full panel. It's my pleasure now to give the screen floor to Dr. Didacienne Mukahabeshimana. Donna, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Yale, for the floor and for the opportunity to speak at this webinar that will be talking about the legacy to the second generation of genocidal rape in Rwanda. Will be the key component of this presentation, of my presentation. I'll be talking about the background that you talk a little bit, how rape was a weapon of genocide, the effect of rape survivor testimonies, the legacy of genocidal rape trauma to the second generation, and talk also about the management of genocide rape trauma and the intergenerational legacy. For those who didn't know Rwanda, Rwanda is in East Africa, and we have 4 provinces with the city of Kigali. Although Dr. Yale talked about the genocide, I would say the origin of genocide, it has 2 parts. The one, it is from the colonialism period, and the second one It is the poor leadership of Rwandan politicians. Before the coming of Germany in Rwanda in 1894, Rwanda, we were living under a feudal regime with social classes. We were in a class of Tutsi, Hutu, and Ditwa. And what the Germany did, they named those social classes ethnic group. Why? For social classes, we should move from one social classes to another. The ethnic group introduced by the Germany were static. And when the Germany lost the war, the UN was then the Belgium. It is like they irritated. As they got Rwanda as one of the colony, the Belgium in 1916, and what the Germany introduced as an ethnic group was now made more formal in a written way by the Belgium in 1936. Is where the identity card were introduced. As you may see on the screen, the photo was taken off, and we will be having through ethnic group Hutu, Twa, and Tutsi. And unfortunately, that card has been used in 1994 to identify who was the Tutsi to be killed, and mainly even moderate Hutu who were supporting the Tutsi were killed. But that genocide didn't happen by accident. It has been organized since a long time. When the Belgium, who opposed from the beginning the Tutsi to the Hutu, they were giving some privilege to Tutsi, and thereafter they support the Hutu against the Tutsi in 1959, and is where the tension started. And since then, Tutsi start being persecuted. They were mass killing in 1973 and over killing. Now let us focus mainly on the genocide. And our focus today will be the use of rape as a weapon of the genocide. What happened during the genocide against Tutsi? It is like there were three ways of killing Tutsi and moderate Hutu. They will be using traditional weapon. As you may see, there is machete, stick, and other traditional tool that we are using in our daily lives. And we have also modern weapon, as you may see on the picture, and also sexual violence that has been also used. But rape has been used even in previous conflict. But in Rwanda, it is like they were using rape in two different ways. They, for example, is what I know from the testimony and also from different research. They were taking women, men having HIV, and they were forced to rape Tutsi women. And from the research from Amnesty International, it has been shown that 7% of women who were raped during genocide got HIV. They were also having mutilation of reproductive organ. They were humiliated, publicly being raped in front of the family, community member, and the humiliation and torture. It is part of an act of genocide as well. And also they were what we call direct death. Some women were raped to death, and all women for all ages have been raped. Sometimes it was they were individually raped, gang raped, or held salvary to be regularly raped. And the research showed that only 1 in 6 survived. And those women who were raped, they were suffering from unbearable memories. It means they were raped at the same time watching the killing of their family member. Is why they're having also overwhelming feelings, sense of helplessness. They have somatic distress due to the brutality of the rape that they encountered. They have negative self-image, problem with intimate relationship, and also social isolation that is increased by the stigma. And those women, despite the suffering I have described in the previous slide, they had the courage to go and testify at Arusha. And mainly women from SEVOTA played a key role. And those United States who was not being able to protect the Rwandan during the genocide, at the end of the genocide, they established International Criminal Court to judge those who committed the genocide. And what that ICTR did, they changed the definition of rape to meet the needs, to meet the needs or the circumstance of rape in which it has been happened. With the definition, with the Convention of Geneva in 1949, the definition of rape was mainly physical invasion. They were focusing on physical act. But with the definition from ICTR, they emphasize on the context of violence in which rape has been committed rather than on the act itself. Is why Akayes, who was the first convicted of rape at the ICTR due to the testimony of women from SEVOTA, Akayes, if I may say, he was coming from Tawa. He was the mayor of Tawa, where SEVOTA has the headquarters. He didn't rape women himself, but he was encouraging Interahamwe to rape women, humiliating the women in open from the public space. Is why he was convicted to rape due to that definition. And beside ICTR, in Rwanda, we are using what we call grown home solution. From our culture, we try to search solution of our problem. Is why in 2001, Gacaca has been introduced as a way of judging those who committed and involved in the genocide. Because we're not having a lot of judge, those who were judging the rapist and over involved in the genocide, they were getting some courses on legal issue, and specifically those who were judging the rapist were getting some course of psychological component in order to not to traumatize those women who were coming to testify. And the speciality of the women, they were in the chamber which were closed with the counselor who may support the women in case they got traumatized. Although those was a positive act, as the rape was recognized as a crime against humanity for the first time, they were outcome of those testimonies. Some were positive and others were negative. What were positive? Women their suffering has been validated, and also they felt empowered because the rape has been recognized, and those who were the aggressor have been, they were judged, and it has for life imprisonment, being from ICTR or being from Gachacha. And as you might see on your screen, the negative side were mainly traumatization, because they have to repeat the scene, and after the audience, they were harassed.
Donna, someone is asking that you explain to the audience the terms Interahamwe and Gachacha. If you can, you're forgetting, you're not talking necessarily to people who, you're teaching people who might not be as familiar as you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you for the audience member. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Dr. El. Donc, Interahamwe, they were those militia who have been trained how to kill people. They were part of the political party who was on power that we used to call MRND. And the Interahamwe, normally it is a good word that is saying, let us be together. And what is terrible with the genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, they were using what was existing already, even the tools for committing the genocide, and the young people who were wealthy, who may kill, who may work very hard for the development of the country, they were used to kill people. In few words, in Interahamwe, they are militia who were trained to kill Tutsi during the genocide, and those Hutu were protecting the Tutsi. This is what we call Interahamwe. And Gachacha code, as I said previously, in Rwanda we are using grown home solution. And Gachacha, before the colonialization, even after the colonialization, we didn't have the court, the judge Western, like we have now on the Western mode. When someone was committing a crime, he has to present before the family member, the neighbors, and people with integrity were becoming the judge. And those judges with integrity were saying, according to the testimony provided by the audience, they were having the power to say if someone was guilty or not. It is Gachacha was a traditional court, and it was based on the value of people, mainly those with integrity was chosen. While actually we are using judges who are educated at the university with different specialization according to the court they have to work for. I think I explained a little bit who is the Interahamwe and what Gachacha. May I go ahead?
Please do, yes.
Mm-hmm. And as you have shown yourself here in your research, you have shown the effect of justice. Those women, when they have been being raped, they were told by the perpetrators that they're gonna die. Even if they don't die, no one will care about their suffering. And going to testify and getting justice, it was very, very important for those women. It is like they recover their dignity. And this is very, very important for the healing process. Unfortunately, there was a negative side, because in the interview, they have to explain in details what they went through. And thereafter, they were harassed. when they were back to the community, they were harassed. Some of them, they have been killed, and others who survived, they experienced even now, but at least due to the work that SEVOTA and other organizations are doing, the stigma decreased. And unfortunately, that stigma didn't stop on the rape survivor. It is also, their children are also affected by that rape done to their parents. And for the second generation of for the children born of rape, there were many publications, as you may see on the screen, with the bad name given to the children born of rape, which is highlighting the stigma that I talked before. And those children, they having emotional and psychological problems as long-term consequences due to the fact that they are born from rape. And personally, when I was I was working in the clinic, I had a lot of women who were victims of rape. And one of them asked if there is a way that I can tell to the world that what they suffered, they were not responsible, rather they were the victim. Is why I started working with women who are rape survivors. My first research was on the lived experience of rape survivor, and for that I got an award when I published that article. And because I saw they were traumatized, they're having a problem, I said, how if I develop a model that will be helping those women to be healed from the genocidal rape trauma? And this is the key component that will come out from my research. And those components are being implemented by SEVOTA, and Didacienne will explore more. Definitely, they need medical care, psychological care, self-help strategy, some techniques like relaxation, and mainly advocacy and education of the community. Education of the community is very important due to the stigma. Although some women are having internal stigma, or also external stigma is very, very destructive. And support group, those support groups are very important because those women, they have lost the sense of belonging. Any human being want to belong to a family, and those support groups from SEVOTA or other organizations are like the family. And also there is economic empowerment. Genocide kill people and they destroy everything they had. Then those who survive, they don't have anything, like even food, they destroy everything. And is where they need to be economically empowered, which is also an important component of the healing process. Those women are really resilient. And today, they're no longer victim, they are a survivor. And many of them, they become community health workers, leaders in the community. They are supporting everyone in the community, and mainly they pair other women who were rape survivors who are still vulnerable. They are memory keepers, as I have mentioned, and I may say because of their testimony, there was justice. Let us be thankful to rape survivors for their courage through testimonies. I'm giving the floor to Didacienne, who will be explaining how the key component I found out from my research are being implemented by SEVOTA. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Donna. We will proceed with Glorious, and Didacienne will speak about the implementation of both as a third presenter. There are many issues to discuss based on what you talked about, and I myself am excited to begin the dialogue after we enrich ourselves further. Glorious, the screen is totally yours. Thank you.
I'll first share my screen.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for the invitation and organizing this. And this is an opportunity for us to share the story of our country. It is an honor for me to be part of the presenters today, especially presenting with Dr. Mukahabeshimana Donatilla, who is my teacher, my mentor, and my friend. And my work has been so much inspired by what she started. She's a pioneer in this area. So I will present my work, and I will not repeat what she has already done because I do build my research program on her work. Also, it is an honor for me to be with Didacienne, who is representing SEVOTA, which has been or has offered me the opportunity to study the topic of my research, as some of the participants in my research come from SEVOTA and other organizations that support children of survivors in Rwanda. There are so many, and I'm so thankful for what Rwandans have done to support each other. And I hope our presentation can be a lesson to other places, but we can also be able to engage in a discussion that can expand our work, and we learn from other participants here. So thank you so much for organizing this and allowing us to share. My work, as I said, does build on the work that pioneers, as Dr. Mukahabeshimana has already started. As a Rwandan, when I completed the genocide happened when I was in high school. But because of the genocide, I decided to do mental health nursing to be able to support survivors. And when I finished my master's in South Africa, I came back home and I realized that there are so many social determinants of health or other things that survivors do go through that need to be advocated, that there is a need of advocacy to be able to support the needs. I think the model Dr. Donatilla has developed, we encompass more than just mental health care that just after the genocide we thought people needed. So from that need to advocate, I started writing, conducting interviews and present my results to people that I thought could make decisions. But in 2020, I conducted interviews with the women who were raped during the genocide, and they came away of the challenge they were going through in terms of being able to care for the children born of genocidal survivors. And that changed my my interest or my research focus. I thought that I can make a contribution in that area by looking at intergenerational health impact of prenatal exposure to genocide, especially looking at the children born of survivors, including those born of genocidal rape. So I used to use my writing for advocacy, but then you are muted. You are muted. We can't hear you. Sorry.
Go ahead. You're watching your PowerPoint. It hasn't moved.
Yes, yes, I will move it. That's okay.
Very, thank you. Thank you.
No
Sorry,
worries.
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, just to make sure.
Yes, I was just going to move to the next one because that needs of not just advocating, but being able to do a research and be able to document my work and be able to speak to the international community made me go to America to do my doctoral research where I conducted the result that I'm going to present now. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Daniel.
Sure, dear.
So the result I will be presenting today is my doctoral research. I look at the mental and the health outcomes of prenatal exposure to genocide as part of my doctoral research at UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago. A little bit of background, as Dr. Mukahabeshimana just presented, hundreds of thousands of Rwandans were conceived during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, including thousands. The number will never be known of children born of genocidal rape. In fact, it is estimated that only one in 6 women who were raped survived, and then so many children were born. There's just estimation between 2,000 and 25,000. So the number will never be known of really the exact number of children born of genocidal rape, as so many women were raped in estimation of approximately 350,000 women were raped during the genocide. So hundreds of children were born of genocidal rape. Those individuals who were conceived by genocidal rape were exposed to maternal stress related to genocide or genocidal rape through at the very beginning of their lives in the first trimester of gestation, which is marked by rapid formation, differentiation, and growth of embryo. Given this influence on early life adverse experience on subsequent health outcome, these offspring are likely at high risk of stress related to chronic disease. For women survivors of genocidal rape, as Dr. Mukahabeshimana just said, stigma, shame, and stress related to rape continued beyond the end of the genocide. And the children born of genocidal rape reported extreme lifelong emotion and health and mental health challenges due to the stigma of birth origins, putting them at a higher risk of stress-related diseases. And this relationship between the prenatal exposure and adult health outcomes are supported by a number of conceptual or theoretical framework, including the developmental origins of health and disease, which suggests that psychosocial, nutrition, and other stressors experienced in utero through early childhood do affect the growth and development in ways that can lead to diminished adult health. There's also another model that does inspire my work, which is Outstart Load, that posits that wear and tear due to the sustained stress and the discrimination takes a toll on health. So as the body is exposed to stress all the time, this cumulative exposure to stress or chronic stress does lead to tear and wear and tear of the body stress system regression, which does increase the risk of most of the chronic diseases. So those born of genocidal rape have the stress they experienced prenatally, but also due to their birth origins, being a child born of genocidal rape, a child of perpetrator, does expose them to lifelong stress. So this is where I built my research, and unfortunately, though it is tragic, the genocide against the Tutsi does provide the unique possibilities to explore the relationship between the prenatal exposure and the post and adult health outcomes. So I conducted a research. My doctoral research had 2 aims. One then was to evaluate the relationship between a range of adult mental and physical health outcomes and exposure to extreme maternal stress related to rape or the genocide or genocidal rape, and determine how these exposures, exposure to cumulative stressors through out the young adult childhood may exacerbate the vulnerability to poor mental and physical health outcomes. So not just the prenatal, but also the lifelong, especially the childhood experience does affect the adult health outcomes. The second aim was to see whether there is the duration of gestation exposure to maternal stress is related to the variation in health outcomes, because not all the these young people exposed to genocide, the duration does vary depending on when an individual was conceived during the genocide against the Tutsi. Those who were conceived early in the genocide during the early days were exposed, the duration of exposure was longer than those who were those who were conceived at the end of the genocide. So the second aim was to look at if the duration of exposure, those who were exposed to genocide for a longer time have poorer mental and physical health outcomes, to see if there is that relationship between the duration of exposure and the health outcomes. As I said, I look at the children born of genocidal rape, and this during the time I collected data in 2018, they were 24 years old, and I was able to enroll 91 participants in my study. This was a cross-sectional associational cross-sectional design, and I enrolled 30 Rwandans conceived via genocidal rape. I will refer to them as those exposed to genocide and genocidal rape or double exposed. I also did enroll 31 age and sex matched Rwandan born of genocide survivors, but not through rape. I would refer to them as exposed to genocide only or single exposed. I did also recruit a control group of those who are not exposed. These are the children, 30 age and sex matched individuals born of Rwandan who were outside the country, because prior to genocide, there have been a lot of other political unrest that made people went outside the country. These are not refugees of after the genocide. These are the people who were outside the country for maybe in 50s. The parents were outside. They were outside the country before the genocide. They technically, even though they are Rwandans, but they are not really exposed directly. They were not directly exposed to genocide. So I do compare their mental and the health outcomes, and I collected a range of mental and the physical health outcomes. In terms of exposure, I look at the exposure to genocide or genocidal rape, and I do look at the adverse childhood experience. Adverse childhood experience include things like living with in a household with a member who use substance like drugs or other type of substance abusers, living in a household with somebody with mental illness, not having parents. So a number of adverse childhood experience. In terms of outcomes, mental and health outcomes, I looked at depression, anxiety, and the other mental health outcomes, the general mental and the physical function. I did collect anthropometrics data to look at the physical construction, because there is there have been some evidence that this the stress, especially at a very early life, can also influence how our bodies are constructed. I did also collect some dry blood samples to look at the epigenetic mechanism that link prenatal exposure and postnatal exposure. I won't talk to I will not focus on this as we just completed the data analysis, and I will maybe have another opportunity to come back and present on this. But in terms of mental and the physical health outcomes, I did publish the first paper on that you can read, but briefly I will present the key result from the M1 that looked at the mental and the physical health outcomes of prenatal exposure, comparing the three groups. So overall, if you look at the mental health outcomes, individuals exposed to maternal stress related to genocide only had poorer mental function, higher scores of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, compared to young people who were not exposed to genocide. So compared to the exposed group, to an exposed group. And individual conceived via genocidal rape reported more depression and PTSD compared to those prenatally exposed to maternal stress maternal stress related to genocide only. In terms of physical health outcomes, individuals exposed to maternal stress related to genocide only had poorer physical function, higher scores of pain intensity, and the pain interference with daily function, and the poorer quality of sleep compared to young adults who were not exposed to genocide or genocidal rape. Individuals conceived via genocidal rape reported more pain intensity with daily life function compared to those prenatally exposed to maternal stress related to genocide only. So this is as expected. The level of exposure does also relate with the difference between the groups. And we also looked at the interaction between the prenatal exposure and the adverse childhood experience, or postnatal, the prenatal and the postnatal exposure. And only as expected, among those individuals born of genocidal rape, the effect of prenatal exposure to genocide on the depression, physical function, pain interference with daily life, and the pain intensity were exacerbated by adverse childhood experience, which was higher among this group born of genocidal rape, especially due to the identity or their birth origins. So if I can provide a summary for the key findings for the first aim, in Rwanda, young adults conceived during the genocide have poorer mental and physical health outcomes compared to sex and age-matched Rwandan who were born of Rwandan who were not exposed to genocide, those who were outside the country during the genocide. And those conceived via genocidal rape had additional poor mental and physical health outcomes compared to those exposed to genocide only. Persistent effects of birth origins on lived experience of trauma may have a larger impact on adult mental health than prenatal exposure only. So I think what Dr. Donatella did explain very well. This exposure, the postnatal exposure, does exacerbate the prenatal exposure, the stress from the mother during the genocide. Now, I say that we did also measure if you compare the adverse childhood experience, you find that those born of genocidal rape does have higher scores of adverse childhood experience compared to those born of survivors who were not raped, and those were born of genocide survivors not through rape. They also have a higher adverse childhood experience compared to those who were not in the country parents who were not in the country during the genocide. And this interaction between the prenatal and the postnatal experience does show they do interact to make health outcomes, to exacerbate the health outcomes among this group born of genocidal rape. For the second aim, I did also publish this paper, and the result are already published. You can read, I will provide a key summary of the findings under this. This aim was to look at the association between the duration of the first trimester intrauterine exposure to genocide against the Tutsi and the health outcomes in adulthood. In this study, we looked at, again, we did analysis and look at the mental health. We focus on mental health outcomes, and we find out that only in those among that the group exposed to genocide, only those who were born of genocide survivors, but not through rape. The longer duration of prenatal exposure was associated with higher scores of anxiety and the lower scores of vitality and the higher scores of depression. And these associations remain significant. The association between the duration of prenatal exposure and anxiety and the vitality remain significant even after controlling for sex and adverse childhood experience. There was no association. There was no associations between the duration of the duration of gestation exposure and the mental health outcomes among those conceived via genocidal rape, and of course those unexposed, the control group, because they were not exposed to genocide. So that was expected. But the lack of association, I want to explain a little bit about the lack of association between the duration of exposure and those born of genocidal rape. With the duration of that lack of association between the duration of exposure and the mental health in the genocidal rape may reflect the fact that stress associated with the conception through rape persisted beyond the genocide period itself, encompassing all the gestation and even beyond. So we could not tease out the effect of prenatal exposure only. Because the stress does go beyond the duration of genocide and even beyond the duration, the gestation to the entire life of these young people who were born of genocidal rape. Our findings here suggest that the importance of care for pregnant people or those who could become pregnant in the midst of genocide or other extreme social political events as early as it becomes possible to mitigate adverse outcomes of prenatal exposure to extreme stress. Reduction in duration of prenatal exposure or exposure to stress has potential to mitigate the long-term health effect. As you can see, the longer duration, the poorer health outcomes. So if we can reduce the duration of exposure, this would make a big difference. However, we stress that this is not enough in the case of those born of genocidal rape. So the duration of exposure was not, reducing the duration exposure may not be enough for those born of genocidal rape, especially that there's other things after the genocide or after other extreme violence that continues with the exposure to stress due to their birth origins. So more tailored intervention targeting survivors of genocidal rape and their offspring should be initiated as soon as possible, and there should be long-term support and the care and prioritize those individuals born of genocidal rape because of their origin, their birth origins. The stress really does go beyond the time of genocide or wars. Overall, this study highlighted the need for national and international policies that identify the risk of impending genocide and other kind of political violence and enact practices to prevent those violence, those human violence from starting or mitigating its scope and limit its duration. overall, I think that is what we can take as the message. In my postdoc work at Dartmouth College, I did continue to work on epigenetic mechanisms, but I also started thinking about the moral and ethical responsibilities of, as a researcher who conduct a research on a sensitive topic, but also among people who with lived experience or living experience of trauma. So this led to my current and my future work, where I plan to continue studying the same population, looking at the, my plan is to initiate a longitudinal community-based participatory research to follow up with and for Rwandans prenatally exposed to genocide, that we continue to characterize aspects of their well-being and the quality of life as they age in the context of social and economic and political changes, and examine the impact, if any, on their offspring. So the second generation. So my work, we are from the time that I completed my doctoral work, I start thinking of, as I said, with my work at Dartmouth, I started thinking about how do you share the result? How do you go back and share this result in the way that does not do more harm, but build the strength and the resilience among these people? So I came up with the idea of integrating with my collaborators here at the Western University. There's a team of people who do work around trauma and violence informed care. So I am adapting this approach into my work, thinking how do we do research in a way that recognize the trauma and the violence that people have lived through, and make sure that in the way that we approach these communities, we don't do more harm. So I am collaborating again with Dr. Mukahabeshimana, Dr. Nadina Wathen here, and SEVOTA in the working with the young people coming from, supported by SEVOTA and other organizations in Rwanda. So one of the activities that we have completed is also to share back what have the outcomes of this research, because most of the time we do research, it is presented to us with other researchers to university, but the population never get to understand what has happened with the research that we do. So I do, we completed a project on sharing the result of this study, but also incorporating this approach, but also I'm designing with them the future study. So that is what I'm working on now that at Western, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, there's been quite a very lengthy presentation for 10 minutes, but every minute was worth it. I will challenge you to do a lot more in future research, because after our webinars of last year, I worked with Grace Kagoire and Rachel Wujuje and Emilienne from Foundation Rwanda on, we translated together the Danieli inventory for multi-generational legacies of trauma. And I challenge all of you to use that in the future. And we can talk about it in the dialogue discussion period, because that one is not only interested in pathological outcomes, but on the whole way of life and belief system and relationships. And also looking at the whole history of genocide in Rwanda. So it goes back to 1959 to see, in fact, of people who were exposed to prior genocides and the 1994 genocide have more serious effects than those who were, as you called it, only genocide. It's a terrible phrase to use, right? But so we have a lot of more work to do. I'm challenging you 100%. But thank you. This was superb, both of you. And I can't wait for Didacienne. Please, dear.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, I'm very happy that we are getting down to the daily work. Go ahead.
Yes, that is true. So I'm very honored to come in after the presentation of the two sisters who finished to outline what happened in Rwanda and which kind of effects which has been harmed women, of course, the ones who has been raped and who had the children born from the rape. So I come in with SEVOTA as an organization, a local organization, which tried to give the response to these issues, to those challenges of women and their children. So SEVOTA, do you see? Okay.
Robbie, can you help?
Okay, SEVOTA is a local organization which is the solidarity for the blooming of the widows and the orphans, aiming at work and self-promotion. And it started in December 1994 by Mrs. Mukasarasi Godlive. Oh, my slide.
Robbie, do you have good?
Okay. The vision of SEVOTA is to have a society.
Didacienne, just one moment. Robbie, do you have it? Perfect.
Okay,
thank you. Perfect.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Here we are. Very
okay.
good.
Thank you so much. So SEVOTA came in with the objective, which was to promote activities relating to peace building, reconciliation, and the promotion of human rights, women's rights, and the rights of vulnerable children through the creation of spaces for healing, dialogue, and capacity building. Next, please. The vision of SEVOTA is to have a society where human dignity is valued and where men, women, and children support each other for their personal development. Now we have the target. We have the right holders, which now we have 1,778 families, and those families are the ones in which are the women who has been assaulted of sexual and rape, sexual and gender rape in 1994. And we have also the children, 1,884 young people born from the rape. The main target of right holders are widows, women's victims of sexual assault and their children born from the rape, and the vulnerable children, as well as their households, meaning the husband for those who are now married. The organization helps the right holders through the awareness raising, counseling, and economic empowerment by encouraging them to engage in income generating activities. SEVOTA, due to the work they achieved, they won the award just to share with the audience that SEVOTA is known, it is visible at all levels, national, regional, and international. So due to the achievement, Godrive Mukasarasi, the founder, was honored as a Just in the Garden of Just in Milan in March 2022. International Women of Courage awarded from the US First Lady in 2018. The John Humphrey Prize for Freedom in 2004 from the Center for Right and Democracy in Ottawa, in Canada, and in 2004. She has been awarded an award of excellence for peace and the development of rural women as an active member. She has been awarded by the Network of Women Working for Rural Development in Kigali in 2001. And she had the prize for rural women creativity by the Fondation Sommet Mondial des Femmes in Geneva in 1996. And now she is honored by a doctorate from the TCU University. She will get her doctorate in this month. To achieve this, it hasn't been easy due to SEVOTA capacity, but since 28 years, SEVOTA has been supported by different potential donors, such as Medica Mondiale, Kivina Tir Kivina, Margaret Funshi Foundation, Pro Literacy International, Global Fund for Women, York University, ARCS, Kinder Mission Work, Broferden Parish from Germany, Melania Foundation, FAO, UN Women. Okay, now to achieve the different activities and change, we have strategies. Many of them are the community mobilization. We try to reach at the wide range the community just to sensitize them about the right of the women and the right of the children, to try to persuade them that those women are not responsible of what happened of the rape, as they are considered in the community as a stigma issue. We try also to share at the wide range the information to educate people and to maintain the communication from the grassroots to the top of the country. We also organize the participatory research, and we continue to do the lobbying and advocacy. So we have core activities which are promoting reconciliation. SEVOTA provides genocidal raped women and their children born from rape with psychosocial and socio-economic support in the form of women forums, youth clubs, and self-help groups, and also we equip them of scholarship. We do the advocacy to raise the voice of women survivors and their children to advocate for themselves. We also organize the awareness raising to reduce conflict in the families, especially for the families in which there are women who has been raped, but who are now married, most of them in intermarriage. So there are different conflicts which continue. So we raise the awareness of all the families to try to find the solution and to prevent the conflict. We also do we consolidating positive effects through micro projects. SEVOTA develops small projects for supporting genocidal rapes survivors and their children born of genocidal rape, building their future. Awareness raising, to reduce conflict within families, mothers and their children who started communicating with others and overcoming their trauma. This comes again because we want to emphasize on conflict between mothers and children, because the children were not accepted by their own mothers, and the neighborhood, their extended family. Children were continuously excluded, and it has been a very bad communication between mothers and children. So we have the specific awareness raising within those families, just to help the good communication between mothers and children, but also between children and the stepfathers. We're making space for solidarity. Organizations, we organize women forums where survivors had an opportunity to exchange experiences, receive psychosocial counseling, and learn techniques for overcoming trauma. Most women subsequently organized the continue to meet regularly and help do the self-help. We also provide some startup funds to women and youth to start some income generation activities. Next, please. Yeah, we can share some achievements. Women survivors of sexual assault are equipped of sufficient knowledge of their rights and key laws that protect them and advocate for themselves and show their potential as leaders. They become leaders in their community. Women, men, and children in inter-ethnic marriage and members of the extended families, such as mothers-in-law, relatives, have the right attitude. They changed before they show the right attitude, responsible of the sexual assault, knowledge and skills to manage conflict and peace building. Women in inter-ethnic marriage and some communities, facilitators are equipped with counseling and healing skills and conduct outreach sessions and helping fellow women and other members of the community with similar needs, especially women who live in families with conflict. As counselors, numbers is limited, so we extend our actions by engaging those who have been trained, women who are trained to, we engage them to go to help others as volunteers. And children who were stigmatized now have the bachelor degree and are integrated as staff in different areas. One of them is a staff of SEVOTA. Even though we achieved many things, but still we have challenges, which we can note some of them. Insufficient resources in human and financial to reach many women survivors of gender and sexual assault and their children who still need to be supported. Lack of economic activities that occupies oneself busy instead of thinking of their life, their story. So when they have something to do, that helps them to manage their trauma. Lack of enough qualified counselors, lack of jobs for the graduated young people, girls and boys who are rejected by their fiancé or husband due to their history. So we have some lesson learned we can share with you. Intergenerational stigma is a problem Children from the rape are still concerned while rejected by their fiancé or husband, as we said. Rwandese by nature are flexible to change, under careful education and training by love and affection. People affected in the time by ethnical discrimination can shift to positive consideration of human being. Unity and Reconciliation Program, together with Ndi Umunyarwanda, which means I'm Rwandan, program, which replaced the ethnic identification, are really needed, and they are required to penetrate the whole country in cities as well as in rural area, because they contain a good cure for society's collective trauma resulted from the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. SEVOTA initiative needs to be supported financially to continue its role in expanding its activities through the country. We have our perspective, which is SEVOTA Peace Institute. SEVOTA is preparing to build a peace institute, which will be an international center that works to sustain the human relationships and history keeper as a learning hub. SEVOTA Peace Institute imagines a future Rwanda where survivors and their offspring who were born of rape are integral and active member of society. So they will play a key role in this institute. SEVOTA Peace Institute believes in the power of community connections and the manner in which this leads the way to the renewal of society during values of human dignity and human rights. So as they gave us 10 minutes, I think I tried my best, and thank you to give me your ears. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Didacienne. Of all these august women today, you're the only one who kept to the time.
Yeah.
And you gave us a whole lot. Would you please put the website on the chat, because people are asking, people in the audience are asking about for the SEVOTA website.
Okay.
Could you put it on the chat, please? And of course, people are recommending other organizations. As you've heard, we have been working with every organization possible, so the center, which we are, will be inclusive, and we build on the knowledge of each. This has been an extraordinarily amazing webinar. You received a comprehensive understanding of the history from Donna, and an understanding of the nature of the conflict and implications for justice, not only justice in Rwanda, but international justice. In Dr. Mukahabeshimana's presentation, you received the highest quality research from Glorious. God bless you. Amazing work. And you tease us rightfully to invite you back to speak about the epigenetic findings when you have them. But as I said, and Donna, you must help too, and Didacienne, when you also use the Danieli inventory, we will, and you place your findings within the context of the field of multi-generational trauma, right? Which is a huge field. As you know, our center is trying to show how huge and important it is. That would be not only contribution for your own country, but for the world as a whole, which you aim to do, as I hear carefully. And of course, SEVOTA has so many awards. I don't want to keep And now that you're building another international center, that's wonderful. We will work with the centers together. So I wonder, while you were listening to each other, what thoughts did you have? Because we really don't have time. I was a very bad moderator because I didn't stop you on time, because I really wanted to learn more and more and more. So we don't have much time for the discussion. But please, I want to know if you had any thoughts that you might want to share in listening to each other. Donna, would you begin? Because we haven't heard your voice for a while. Please unmute. All of you, unmute now. Glorious, you too, because we are in a dialogue. Donna, what thoughts went through your mind while you listened to yourself and to the others?
What I like from this webinar is now the collaboration between academician and the clinician has been highlighted. As researchers, we are doing research, and it is being implemented in the community, and is how research should be done. And also the idea of Gloria's coming with participatory action research. Those who are concerned by the problem are at the same time those who have a solution. Yeah, it is like you are a team. And also I saw on the chat SAF and Foundation Rwanda. Definitely we need Glorious and Didacienne, all of us were Rwandese, and we need to have a forum. Thank you, Daniele, for initiating this forum. And we need to know who in Rwanda is working with women, rape survivor, and their children. We need really that forum, and we can organize a forum as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We should absolutely organize a forum. That's why we do it sort of step by step. But you're absolutely right in envisioning it's toward the future where we should bring everyone together and learn from each other. Well, you are on the advisory council, so you already advise us. That's superb. Glorious.
Yes.
Glorious. What were you thinking when you were listening to yourself and to the others?
I think I want to agree with what Dr. Mukahabeshimana just said about the collaboration. As we, especially this time, as I said, I'm looking at how do we get to work with people that the community that you study and know exactly that you're answering the questions that matters for the community. SEVOTA is one of the organizations that I work with. I also work with young people from SAF, from Avega, from different organizations in Rwanda that are doing amazing work supporting these young people. And I've been...
Emilienne says hello to you.
Oh. Yes, she's amazing. She's been helping me with this study. And I've been working with these young people since I could not talk with them in 2010. I talked with their mother, and I have seen them growing, they're becoming Rwandan citizens who are responsible, who want to contribute. And that is where, with the participatory approach, I am working with them. We just complete with Dr. Mukahabeshimana a session of going around the country to ask them what question matters for them, what questions they want to study, what do they want the study to focus on, because this is their study. As a researcher, we should go to the community and work with the initiatives that are there. Didacienne is doing a work. Maybe there's somewhere that she wants to see a research bringing in more light. So I should go ask her, listen to her, and work with her to study something that doesn't matter for me and my degree, but something that matters for the community. So I can't overemphasize the need for collaboration and the respect of people who are doing the work on the ground, and really being there as a tool and serving them, bringing in our expertise to expand the work that is being done at the community level. Exactly. I am studying my own community, the other researchers that comes from outside the country, that immediate collaboration in the community should be emphasized, especially that we don't want to do harm to the community. When you come with your own agenda, there is so much chance that we harm instead of doing good. Listen just for your own publication, but not listening to contribute to the community. As a researcher, I see my work, I'm just at the beginning. I have a lot to do. I will work with maybe SEVOTA to evaluate the model that they're implementing, just Didacienne Mukahabeshimana, Dr. Mukahabeshimana just presented. So those are we should go to the community to serve, to work with the community and study questions that matter to the community. And take SEVOTA and the other organizations, Avega, other organizations that support survivors, they're really doing amazing work. We need to go and work with them. And the young people, they're just a joy to see. The last time we met with them, they have grown as their sense. Some of them, they have degrees. They can participate in the research. They can do analysis. We just completed analysis with some of them. They are capable now to take over and do the research, study themselves. And we need to support and provide those skills.
Okay. Now, the one thing you didn't do, and I ask this of everyone in the audience as well, and thank you indeed, Noam Shimel, for providing us for suggestions for further readings in the chat. We all appreciate that, but again, I'm calling on all of you. The International Center for MultiGenerational Legacies of Trauma has the most comprehensive library in the world, digital library in the world of the highest quality that looks to have every publication in every profession, in every medium, including poetry, including playwriting, but certainly the scientific studies. So we aim to have all of them in all languages in our library. So please, Glorious, you have to send us your publications. Donna, we already have yours. God bless you. Thank you. And you'll keep publishing and sending to us. So don't forget, because when you connect with us, you become a part. That's how it is in the world. And one of the members of our advisory council, Irene Ochen, from Uganda, but now in South Africa, is organizing, I believe, a meeting in Kigali on women in November. So we will try to put everybody in touch, maybe to see if that could be a possibility to begin a conversation about a forum on this issue. How do you think? What do you think? Yeah, okay, so we will be, yes, we will be in touch. Most of the comments, Noam, thank you so much for your recommendations for reading. Also, he recommends an organization I have known for many years. Thank you, Noam. Survivors Fund in UK. Because, you know, when you get to my age, you've sort of been in touch with people years ago too. So I remember when we were working together, and they, so thank you for bringing them up again. I wonder if there's any questions from the audience. Mostly it's comments and suggestions. Jacqueline, Jacqueline Rekatete, who has been working with me for many years, right, so thank you so much for this critically important presentation. As difficult as the subject matter is, the stories have to be told so that survivors' voices can be heard, their challenges acknowledged and addressed, and hopefully the world can learn and recommit to preventing sexual violence against women and holding those responsible and accountable. Thank you so much again for each presenter and for ICMGLT. The rest is people are just loving everything you've done today. So this is a good sign for us to keep doing it. And yeah, Claudine, you have the website now, I believe. Am I missing any of the question? If so, would you add it at the end again? Okay, Claudine is giving her, right, the International Trauma Studies. Yeah, Claudine, we know each other for a long time. I think they're just asking us, okay, Faye, a very close friend of the center and a wonderful lawyer, Faye Paris, says, please address gaps for children born in conflict living in the diaspora. Absolutely. She has listened to me sufficient time. Actually, and Glorious, you'd be particularly interested in this. The Danieli inventory was standardized originally with children of Nazi Holocaust survivors in North America and in Israel. And we found significant differences between children in the country and in the country that they call homeland and in what they call diaspora. So one of the most important recommendations we have out of that particular study, we had 7 publications. They're all on the website for everybody, so you can, and I'll share them with you in particular if you don't know them. We found significant differences. As a result, we recommend that every study we do is done both in the homeland and in the diaspora, because you really can't generalize from one place to the other.
Yeah.
This is why it's so important, okay? So thank you, Faye, for long-term learning from our process here. Didacienne, would you like to reflect on what you heard from others? Go ahead.
Yeah. So just to thank you so much to have organized this webinar and bring on the board the practitioner and academicians. So this is very relevant and very effective. So we can learn from the research and learn from the ground. So we can improve so many things for the best, the welfare of women and children.
Amen.
We are working for. Thank you.
Amen. And I see, yeah, we have, there's a question here from Segatasha. SEVOTA is the only women survivor rape genocide Tutsi. No, it's not. No, it's not. Actually, I had mentioned before, and few others have mentioned other organizations such as Foundation Rwanda, and which else did you mention? The main women's organization, Avega, but there are even others. So no, Segatasia, you keep attending our webinars, you learn more and more and more. And we try to learn from everybody. So any last words before we close? You'll have, this is part of a series, so it's last words for today, not forever.
It seems there is a question from Consolé.
Oh, yeah? Which, here we
A
go.
question from Consolé.
Try that share the question just in case you missed it. Which question, Consolé? I just saw your huge, well, she wrote it in Kenya, Rwanda. They're very nice of you. So fine, no, that's from Claudine. Where is Consolé's question? Wonderful. Hold on. Thank you, Consolé. I always love your questions. Where did you write it?
I don't think there is a question.
Do you see the question?
No.
Rabbi, can you put Consolé on? Can you let her speak? Because I didn't see that she wrote it. Consolé, please ask your question.
She wants to speak.
Go ahead, Consolé.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm not
Hi
going to...
there. How are you?
Good, how are you? I'm just going to speak just without being on the video. So sorry. Yeah, so I just want to thank you all, for an amazing presentation. So I really appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you, Dr. Daniela. Thank you, everyone. So I really want to thank you very much for the amazing work you're doing and, speaking on the issue of rape and sexual violence happened during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Every time I hear this topic, because it's personal to me as one of those women who have gone through that painful experience during the genocide and how it affects women. And I always have a conversation with, different women, and some of them who have shared stories with me of what they have gone through during the genocide. I always wonder, what do you think about, especially women who are not necessarily being supported by these organizations? Most of the women probably who are open to you are rural women. And sometimes I talk to women who are like myself and who will not be able to share with everyone else because they have their own lives, they have ways they live their lives, but they have painful experiences and how these are women, many are educated women, or they have been able to, have their own lives in many different ways, but they carry a lot of trauma and it affects them in many different ways. So, and sometimes I talk to, to some of them who share personally to me, privately to me about their painful experience because I've shared mine. So I always wonder, how do you, especially that it's hard for so many to share their experiences, how are we going to, when we are doing the research, especially women like that, and sometimes they have the ways of talking about it, how it affects them, how are we going to, I always wonder how, because some of them, suffer in silence, but they're not going to be able to talk about it. So, and I always wonder myself as a person who gets those, those messages from those people, how are we going to help people like them who are not going necessarily to be found easily? Maybe they might not necessarily be able to be found in a way to talk about the experiences. How are we going to to know the you know, how it affects them. And maybe, I don't know, most of the time we hear a lot of rural women, but we don't hear much about also, you know, these experiences from these women too. So, and yeah, I always wonder myself that. So I don't know. I don't know how we're gonna do that to support them. So that
I will let me answer internationally.
yeah.
And then, of course, I see Glorious is already taking notes, so you have some ideas, and I'm sure all of you do. This for me, this is one of my missions in life. I don't want to die before victims around the world know that they have rights. And before those victims who are most beaten, the ones you're talking about, the isolated ones, the ones that don't have the energy to even come forth, who don't have, who are skipped by the organizations, be it in the rural, but even inside cities, but mostly in the rural too, indeed. You know, in the International Criminal Court, we speak of it as access, right? Access and outreach. That's part of so I wonder, I would let the three of you talk about Rwanda per se, but I'm so glad Consuelo brought up this issue, because for me, it's one of the most painful issues on earth. Go ahead, Glorious, you start, and then Donatilla, and then Didacienne. I'll be back.
Consuelo, I really want to appreciate this question, and I think I do believe in a collaboration. So as you get access to these women, I think the best way to do this, it is to start with collaborating with people like you who have access to these women, and I really do understand what it takes to be able to share a story, to share a painful experience, and be able to open up and be able to seek for help. I appreciate that now as the mental health in Rwanda and support systems are kind of like growing up. There are individual therapy that people can attend, but also working with people like you who have access to those people. I think we can be able to design an intervention that can target people who will not necessarily come to seek for support from SEVOTA or other institution, and probably maybe be able to design something that is more tuned to that population you are talking about. For example, in Dr. Mukahabeshimana's model, she talked about self-help. Those are some of the approaches that you can use, avail some online tools to help, but also individual intervention as needed. So I believe maybe connecting and working towards something that is targeting that community, understanding that population you are talking about a little bit more, and what can work for them, what they feel comfortable. I think that is where we can start. And I really do appreciate sharing this question. If you're interested, maybe that's something we can connect after this and discuss how we can move forward. But of course, individual interventions therapies are around in the country, and there are places where people can go for help, but also approach them a little bit more and bring them to a place where they can freely share their experience as they are comfortable doing that. I think that can be helpful.
Let me just add to this, because it's a similar problematic. Blanche Moiret's question, are there men who are also concerned with this issue and assisting with the work? So of course it's related, because part of, we are sort of in the struggle between the stigma and the societal negative forces that want to repress and suppress and forget and deny the voices, and the degree of giving upness of the isolated and feeling so lonely and feeling they had no voice. So let's continue. Donna, do you want to address the question, both questions, and then Didacienne, please? You have to unmute there.
Thank you, Consuelo, for sharing your experience. As Glorious have started, now you become ambassador for those women, and you already know some available resources. Maybe you can connect those women to available resources. And for us, if I'm talking from the Rwandan side, the work we do, every time that we have an opportunity to talk about the consequences of rape that happened during the genocide, we talk about those consequences and the opportunity that are existing to support those women to heal are shared with the audience. Then those who are attending those audience, we don't know who is having that problem. But when we share about the story of the rape survivor, how they may heal the existing resources. Some women are approaching us. And in Rwanda, I'm focusing on Rwanda because in the most context I know better. Currently, we are having a private clinic for clinical psychology, mental health nurses, and those who are educated prefer mostly to go to the private clinic. And also as therapists, when we are having a client coming with different somatic disease, who are women survivors of the genocide, sometimes we explore what happened exactly during the genocide, and they speak out about the story. But the silence is mainly due to the survivor guilty. As I have mentioned, some women, they are accused being responsible of their rape. And from there, they are having internal stigma.
Yeah. Let me interrupt you. Don't call it survivor's guilt. Call it survivor's guilt feelings, please.
Yes.
Please,
Thank you.
You're the one who spoke about it.
Yes. Sorry.
Please.
Yeah.
It's so important, people. So important how we use words. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I've written a great deal about survivor's guilt, so I'm not against using those words, but in this, but it's not. Yeah, we have to also. We keep talking about community-based, right? Which we all totally agree on. But a huge part of healing has to come to the community itself. And a lot of education has to go to the community itself. Not only the survivors cannot alone carry the burden of explaining. And Consolee, you know that. You speak all over the place. I mean, I always learn something from you, but you know that a huge part is to educate. Didacienne, did you want to address these two questions? I don't want to not give you a chance here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Doctor. And thank you, Consuelo, to raise that question. I have to tell you that those women are still there. Actually, we are identifying new women to come in the forums. And curiously, we have found there are many women who are still waiting for any support, psychosocial support, who live with their trauma since 1994 and who has not had the opportunity to meet like a psychologist. So the question is there, and the people women waiting for the help is there. But of course, organizations working with those women and the children are not many, so there is a large scale of need. I think what we try to do as the ones who are at the ground, we try to advocate, we continue the advocacy and the lobby, we organize the workshops just to let those women and children raise their voice themselves in presence of civil society organizations, government representation, just to let know that there is still a need. But also we try to organize the referrals when we are at the field and when we meet women who still need to be supported. And as we are not capable, so we organize the referrals to the two different services which can help them, especially the clinic for trauma treatment. Thank you.
Okay, let me just add, it's what happened here is very typical of what happens around the world, Blanche. Your question is extremely important and people are very scared of it, so they don't answer it. There have been men who were raped, and not only in Rwanda, across the world. That's why today when we speak about gender-based violence, right? So it includes both women and men, whatever other gender. Your question is extremely important. That is an exceedingly lonely group of people. And society are even less kinder to them as to the women, if that's possible. But there are some who do come and who do speak out. And both Glorious and Donatilla, you teach at the university. I forget all of the names in your publications. Are men involved in those publications too?
Yes.
Good.
We are collaborating with men as well.
Excellent. So Blanche, please, when I get everything in the library, you will find the men. We're doing this. Glorious, not to forget, we need those articles. But you are, by Blanche, you are pointing out to an important omission, and we will keep our eyes on it. And I want to already ahead of time, there's one more comment I would like to make that it's sort of unpopular. And then another announcement about the next Rwanda webinar in this series. One is, Donna, you said what many people say around the world, victims become survivors. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I didn't like it to begin with, because victims feel bad enough. They don't need to be told that they have to become something else. Every survivor is a victim. And every victim is a survivor. Because of that, in my writings, I write victims/survivors, or to respect all of it. There's a danger, again, in using words, and I'm not saying it personally to you, Donna. I know it's being used all over the world, but it always gives me the shivers, because I know how many victims who feel even less after they hear that they're not survivors yet. You see. So I just, again, my push is just for always remember sensitivity, empathy, and then be very thoughtful about how we use words and what do the words mean to people. Although I totally understand the sense of celebration when you feel unburdened by your history after you've integrated it well. But you're still a victim survivor. So let me just make that as a general teaching point, and it's not personal. And I already thank Dr. Mukahabeshimana again ahead of time for helping with organizing our next Rwanda webinar this year during the 100 days on the impact of the release of prisoners. Maybe, Donna, you want to say 2 sentences about it, just so people know the situation who might not know?
What I may say, currently we are having prisoners who are being released from prison, and there are many organizations who are working with them, like Prison Fellowship, Interpeace. But as always, I'm talking about SEVOTA. We are having also men who are coming, who are released from prison, and women are members of SEVOTA. And
not only SEVOTA, you mean the victim survivors of rape?
Yes, is what I mean. I'm sharing the experience from SEVOTA. And I was saying also, we have those organizations named the Prison Fellowship, who are working mainly with those prisoners coming from the prison. It means for the next webinar, those organizations will be also involved, not only SEVOTA.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes, is what I'm saying.
Perfect.
And we see how it is very hard for the survivor to welcome those perpetrators, and sometimes they don't have a choice, because we are in the same country that genocide have been committed by Rwandan against Rwandan, and it was also stopped by Inkotanyi, who are Rwandan. Yeah, it's how you have to go. It's 9 o'clock. The challenge, yeah, and share the experience. That will be the next webinar.
Yep, so we will have it within the 100 days, so please watch out for it in our announcements. We will have some others in the meantime also on refugees and other upcoming issues. I don't have enough words to thank the 3 of you. You have really provided people for so much information, so much to think about, so much understanding, and inspiration for the future. So let's continue to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for such a wonderfully active audience.
Thank you.